Alright guys, let's talk about Georgia. Now, I came across this article last weekend in the Associated Press, and it says ex-soccer player Kavelashvili becomes Georgia's president in a blow to country's EU aspirations. So, former soccer player Mikheil Kavelashvili became president of Georgia on Saturday. I believe he didn't become president, he was appointed to become the next president. Anyway, the term of the sitting president should end at the end of December. She should leave and then this guy should take over. Now, speaking of the sitting president, so this is an article from Al Jazeera and it says Georgia's president will not step down until illegitimate election rerun. Alright, so Georgian President Salome Zourabichvili, sorry guys, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce these names, said she will not leave office when her term ends because the parliament is illegitimate. Okay, so what's going on here? Now, some time ago, in October, to be precise, elections were held in Georgia and the so-called Dream Party won the elections. Now, the opposition parties since then have been claiming election fraud. So the Dream Party must have rigged the elections somehow. Now, of course, the entire Western world, being the US and the EU, jumped on this. They've been condemning the Georgian government for this because, of course, they blindly believe the opposition in Georgia. Now, if you're the opposition, in this case Georgia, and you claim that the government has rigged the election, well, you should have some very strong evidence of that, don't you? Well, listen to what Tina Bokuchava, she's the leader of one of the opposition parties, listen to what she has to say.
Two credible, international, very experienced, separate polling companies showed exit poll results that had the opposition leading with a very wide margin of 10%. And yet we saw the Central Election Commission publish results that are the complete opposite, giving the Georgian dream an unthinkable advantage. We believe, we are convinced, and we are certain that this is due to election fraud.
So basically what she's saying is that two of the exit polls that were done in Georgia, there were more exit polls, but two of them were done by what she called highly acclaimed international companies. Sounds very trustworthy, right? So these exit polls seem to indicate that the Dream Party wasn't going to win the election, or at least they weren't going to get enough votes to form the government. And when the official results came in, it turned out they did get enough votes and they did win the elections. And so the opposition parties claimed, well, they must have rigged the election somehow. Now, a little while ago, I did a video on Venezuela. So some months ago, there were presidential elections in Venezuela, and the exact same thing happened as we're seeing now in Georgia. So Nicolas Maduro, the sitting president, won the elections, but then the opposition stepped in and said, well, he must have rigged the election somehow. Why? Well, there was an exit poll that seemed to indicate that Maduro was losing the elections, and when the official results came in, all of a sudden he won the election, so he must have rigged the elections. Now, of course, the entire global West was very quick to condemn Nicolas Maduro. They were very quick to get behind the opposition in Venezuela. You have to know that the global West, especially the United States, has been trying to get rid of Nicolas Maduro for many, many years now. They're not even secret about it, they're just openly saying it. So of course they were very quick to get behind the opposition in Venezuela and support support the narrative of election fraud. Now let's take a look at this article from the Geopolitical Economy. It says, US government-linked firm is source of exit poll claiming Venezuelan opposition won election. So there was one exit poll, as I mentioned, that the opposition and the global West based their doubts on, and that exit poll was done by an organization called Edison Research, right? Now, Edison Research, according to this article, has a very questionable history. So let's take a look at this. So although Edison Research exit poll has been widely cited by the US media to cast doubt upon Venezuela's electoral results, it is by no means an impartial observer. In fact, Edison's top clients include CIA-linked US government propaganda outlets, Voice of America, Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, and the Middle East Broadcasting Networks, all of which are operated by the US Agency for Global Media, a Washington-based organ that is used to spread disinformation against US adversaries. So do you see what's going on here? I mean, according to this article, it's not so much that the elections were rigged in Venezuela. The exit poll was rigged to make it appear like the elections were rigged. That's the game. Now let's go back to Georgia for a second. Now remember that Tina Bokuchava, the leader of one of the opposition parties in Georgia, talked about two highly acclaimed international polling offices. Well, guess who one of these polling offices is? Exactly. Edison Research. Now, do you really believe that the elections were rigged in Georgia? Or could it be maybe that this was an orchestration by the opposition in Georgia, taken from the exact same playbook as was done in Venezuela a few months ago? Let me know what you think.